Excellent. So thanks very much for coming. And who was at Agile Tour 2 years ago? About kind of slightly less than half of the room. So 2 years ago, for Agile Tour, about 10 minutes before my talk, I was trying to find some kind of funny shit to put on a slide. And I found this kind of weird statistic that I put on a slide and I presented it there. And then after that, it started bothering me quite a lot. And I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And I realized that, well, this thing explains a ton of stuff in a much better way than I thought it would. And kind of effectively that slide turned into this talk. So if you notice the slide, there will be one slide I used 2 years ago here as a kind of award for noticing that slide. You win a copy of my latest book. But also, if you don't notice it, you win it as well. So it's already in your kind of bag. So one of the things that's really interesting for me is how much luck plays a role in great products succeeding. And how we as an industry pretend that actually it wasn't luck, it was something that we were going to do from the start. And there was this wonderful story I read in a book called Founders at Work by Jessica Levin, and she talks about how this kind of company where there were some super smart people who in the late 90s were so good at programming C++ that they built like these crazy cryptographic algorithms that could work on low-power devices. And now they had a product, they were kind of realized it's a solution in search of a problem. So yes, you can do cryptography on a low-power device, but what for? And then somebody said, well, cryptography kind of is good for doing secure things. Money transfer is kind of requires security, so maybe we can do money transfer over low-power devices. And it's like, oh, how do we do that? Well, we build this software that you can take one, Palm Pilot device, you bang with another Palm Pilot device and it transfers money. It's going to be really cool. So they built it, and then kind of they really couldn't get people to use it. And around 99, the web started becoming a thing, so they decided not enough people know about this. It's so cool, but not enough people know about this. Let's build a website. And on the website, we'll kind of explain what this does, and we'll also have like a very, very bad version of money transfer. Just people can, create an account and get started and download the app. We're going to have this kind of app download thing. And they built it, and all of a sudden, people started using the web app in ways nobody ever imagined. They were starting to use it for online auctions, for different things. And this company kind of actively fought people trying to use the website, although they had it there because it was supposed to be a demo. It was stupid, it was uncool, and it was not leading to app downloads. In today's kind of terminology, their kind of key metric for success would be app downloads, and app downloads were not happening. And they were fighting against this. They were trying to get people to kind of not use the logo and complained about this all the time. And the crazy users didn't kind of care about that. And at some point, somebody did the analytics, and they realized that the website has 1.5 million active users, and that the mobile app they built at peak time had 12,000 users. And they realized that the product is not the mobile app, the product is the website. And kind of they killed the mobile app. Palm Pilot no longer exists. Nobody's using Palm Pilots, but the company still exists. It's called PayPal. And it's one of kind of the biggest payment processors in the world. And the whole thing, when I read it, kind of sounded like a very lucky accident. And people think about that, whoa, that was kind of lucky. And lucky accidents happen to everybody. I think kind of one of the things that really got me started to think about is how frequently we have this kind of serendipitous moments. Something lucky happens to us, but some companies are much better at spotting when something lucky happened than others. And in many companies, when something happens where the users are doing something that you didn't expect, the product management fight against that because it's not increasing the KPI you want it to increase, like app downloads. And actually something much better is happening there. And I think if we made this process more systematic, then we can skip the part where we fight against it. And we can just like make better products for everybody. So that's really what the point of this talk is. I kind of just want to show you how crazy this goes. So, like, be honest. We're in a safe environment here. They're filming me, not you. So, who's been on a project where something happened and, like, you got a bug report or you got some complaint, and then it kind of, you looked at it and said, well, this thing really requires some basic level of intelligence and, two hands and something like that. So, who's been on a project like that? So almost everybody, okay. So kind of one of the companies I used to work with, they had these kind of psychopaths in support that were really kind of, they hated their users. And every time a user complained about something, you would get a kind of a call from support and say, look, but the user's really not technical. So what the fuck does that even mean? I mean, non-technical. I mean, I myself are 100% organic. I'm like free range like chicken. I'm not technical at all. Like, if you need to be technical to use this, what level of technical do you need to be? Do you need to be like advanced super intelligence like Data from Star Trek? I don't know. I mean, do you need to be a Terminator coming back from the future to use this stuff? But, okay, so we have, people who are just non-technical and things like they can't use the software. But who's been on a project where it was the opposite, where the user was too smart for you? A couple of people there. So this is a much, much more rare case. We had this case a while ago. I worked for a gambling company, and they had an integration with an American poker network. The American poker network, they used chips, but chips were dollar cents. And the company was British, they used pounds. There was a screen where you can transfer pounds to dollar chips that were cents. The exchange rate was something like 0.54 pounds per dollar. So there was a user one night who took 1 cent, transferred into 0.54 pennies, which was rounded to 1 penny, then took that 1 penny, transferred into 2 cents, then took one of these cents, transferred into 0.54, rounded to 1, took another one, and doubled the money, and then wrote a robot that did that. And basically, tomorrow morning, we drew 20,000 pounds to their account. And this was completely legal. I mean, the person used the software in a way that was legal, so, the user was too smart for us. And this is kind of the opposite of, the user not being technical. This was, the advanced super intelligence from the future, because of course, nobody in the development team or the testing team or the product management team could have predicted something like this happening. This is impossible to do. So kind of we have this thing where really it's unclear, is something like that a bug? Or is something like that a feature? And we have this kind of dichotomy between bugs and features that is really, really weird. And it's difficult to nail down when something is a bug or not. Is it a bug if somebody who's below average intelligence can't use your software? Or is it a bug when somebody with above average intelligence can abuse your software to take money? I mean, that's or is that a feature? Is that how it's supposed to work? And I remember this case a while ago where we kind of, a colleague of mine and I were told by the project manager, we have to go for kind of a coffee and a sandwich with her. It's like, I don't want a sandwich and don't like drinking coffee with you, but why? I said, no, we need to go outside the office. I said, okay. And then we went there and, she took a sandwich, like munching on it. He said, well, you guys are labeling too many things with bugs. I said, well, it's not me. It's kind of, bugs are in the software. He said, no. Look, kind of the basic difference between the bug and a feature is who pays for it. So if you label something as a bug, then we have to do it for free. If it's a feature request, then the client has to pay for it. And she said, so from now on, everything is a feature request. And this colleague of mine had the best reply ever. It was like, okay, let me see if I understand correctly. So this kind of big black thing that just crawled into your sandwich, that's a feature request, yeah? So, I mean, really, this is a point of view. We can talk about this from, you know, her point of view, from the company's point of view, from the tester's point of view, and thus we get into kind of right or wrong, which are, you know, now we get into Christian morality and everything like that, and what happens, and this really depends on your view. And one of the kind of really weird things that happened to us developing MindMap. MindMap is a kind of mind mapping collaboration application. A while ago, we had a bug report where it came that says, you know, I tried to open your software kind of on a fridge and it doesn't work. It's like that. Let's go over this again. So, why? I mean, I understand your laptop can get a bit hot if it's busy, but like putting it in a fridge is a bit of an overreaction. I thought, you know, this is like getting some kind of stuff that's really, are we talking about how you expected it to work? Are you talking about how, you know, I never expected anybody to use it in a fridge. Like, where did you put the fruit? Is that now inside? Is that like, you know, are we trying to keep the design fresh? I mean, what's going on, you know? And she said, well, no, look, this was before COVID, before work from home, before all of this kind of, you know, normalizing where people use stuff. And the user was a busy mother. She was trying to kind of collaborate with her colleagues in the morning, but still preparing breakfast for the kids. So putting a laptop on the table with the kind of milk and things like that was not that useful. The software didn't work well on a small screen, so she couldn't run it on the phone, but her fridge had an Android screen, so she tried to load it there. And I was like, you know, is that expected? Is that unexpected? Is that a bug? Is that not a bug? And we realized that kind of maybe, you know, working it well on low temperature is not really what we need to do, but maybe make it work well without a keyboard. Maybe. And then we optimized the software a bit for working well without a keyboard. And actually, kind of, it turned out to be really good because then people started using it on tablets and all of the other places, not necessarily kind of fridges. So when we talk about kind of bugs and features being something that kind of is expected or unexpected, of course, as a consultant, you know, I need to show you some quadrants. So we have like, you know, different perspectives here, really. We have a perspective of, did it do what was expected from the perspective of people who built it? Stakeholders, product management, developers, testers. And did it do what was expected from the perspective of people who use it? And on one hand, yes, you know, the diagonal is very easy, kind of. If it doesn't do it in both categories, it's a bug. If it does it in both categories, you know, it's acceptable. And without going into who pays for it, that's, you know, a totally different discussion. But what's interesting is kind of these other two categories that are missing there. So if it does something that the users expected, but it's not what you expected, then kind of it's an exploit. Then somebody's getting value in a different way than you wanted to offer through the software. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Maybe the website you built is taken off instead of the mobile phone app, and that's perfectly fine. But it's not what you expected. It's kind of something that is kind of unexpected on your category. But the other one where, you know, non-technical users and all of this other stuff comes in, really, I don't think that's a bug. And Kat Holmes wrote a lovely book on inclusive design. And she talks about how there's often a problem where the user's abilities, expectations, capabilities are in mismatch with the software. It's not the fact that the user is non-technical or not. And I love this kind of phrasing as a mismatch. If you've built your software to be used by PhDs and people who are kind of computer programmers, you can expect a certain level of technical knowledge there. But if you've built your software to be used by wide consumers, then you can't really complain that somebody's non-technical. That's a mismatch between the design and the intended audience. And I think we should kind of move away from thinking about bugs and features to thinking about this whole kind of model where we have bugs and exploits as well. and moving away from kind of 2 categories to 4 categories, primarily because I think that this is where we can become systematic at figuring out when something lucky happened to us. Because something lucky happens in unexpected categories. So we have kind of mismatches and exploits are actually hidden product opportunities. And if we are systematic about watching for these things, we can benefit quite a lot from when something unexpected happens. So here's an example. One of the products I'm working on at the moment started off as a way for people to create videos from PowerPoint documents. You create your slides, you put in text into the presenter notes, you upload the PowerPoint. My software creates text-to-speech voiceover from the PowerPoint notes and creates a video out of it. And it started kind of picking off nicely, and I had a bug report from a user. There was something to do with voiceover. I downloaded PowerPoint, I converted it to a video, and the video was completely blank. I was like, oh, fuck. So, there was a problem here. Yeah, the user was complaining about the audio conversion, but the video doesn't work. So I thought there was a bug in the video conversion pipeline, spent a couple of hours investigating it. I couldn't figure out what's wrong. I opened the PowerPoint and it was kind of blank, really. There was some presenter notes, but there was no slides. So sometimes, people use these weird software to create PowerPoint. PowerPoint is universal format. You have OpenOffice, you have Keynote, you have who knows what else. And I thought maybe the user used something that wasn't kind of official PowerPoint to export it. I asked him, like, yeah, what did you use? And he said, yeah, Office 365. Like, ooh, now we have a bug. So I quickly did some statistics, and I found that, yeah, there's like maybe 10, 20 of these per day from different users, and they're converting stuff, they are paying for it, so probably going to start for asking their money back at some point when they realize what's going on. That's not good. And then I said, well, I can't really figure out what's going on here. When you open the thing in your PowerPoint, what do you see on the screen? Can you send me a screenshot? And he sends me a screenshot of like a white slide. Like, this is weird. So the slide is blank for you as well. He said, yeah. So why are you paying me to create blank videos, man? And he explained that kind of we iterated on the text-to-speech feature so well that it was much, much easier to use than all the other competitors. So he didn't need the video, he just needed an audio track. He would put the stuff in a PowerPoint, speaker notes, upload it, create a video, just extract the audio track and use for something else. And the process took like 10 minutes instead of taking 20 seconds. We were paying a lot more for it because of the infrastructure to create videos and things like that. Text-to-speech is just a tiny part of it. So kind of, I ended up building a screen where people can just, type some text and get it out. And a couple of months later, kind of, this is what actually kind of happened from the statistics. So the video build tasks in this period were like 264 videos, but 124K audio files. People were building 3 orders of magnitude more audio files than they were building videos. And this was a direct result of just me spotting something stupid. Now, is this a mismatch? Is this a bug? Is this, I don't know. But effectively, the product went in a totally different direction. I think one of the kind of key things we can do when we start looking at mismatches and exploits is start learning how people are misusing our products. Like, that's not the number one thing we need to do to be more systematic about learning from these mistakes. And there's a ton of ways you can do that. If you have a web-based product, there are things called screen recorders now where effectively they will capture lots of data and then you can replay a user session to see what's going on. It's kind of effectively simulating what happens when you do a UX test and you start kind of banging your head. Why are you not clicking on this button? You should be clicking on this button. You can see people struggling. If that's too intrusive, there's lots of analytics and things like that you can use. I have some links to tools you can use for this later. I'll show you. But one of the kind of things I like to do, I'm a developer, I like to log things. And let me show you what I mean by that. That's a very cheap and easy way to kind of do this. So I mentioned people can now, convert directly text to speech. You can upload lots of different types of documents. This is what the screen looks like. There's an upload file button. You select that. An upload file dialog comes along. You select the file. You upload Word, PDF, rich text files, whatever. And then sometimes people select stuff that makes no sense. Like people select images occasionally, and you get an error saying, well, you need to upload a text file, not an image, man. I mean, your handwriting is not something we can consume now. And this is what every good software does for everything. You show a user a nice error message. But what I do is one more thing. This sends a message back to us and says, somebody tried to upload something you don't support. So we can analyze that. And we capture lots of weird things. For example, this one, somebody tried to upload an APK file. APK file are Android applications. Like, how do you read an Android application? Why? I have so many questions. I have no idea. And this is where, I'm go back to the presentation from 2 years ago. I found this research by Scott Alexander who claims that 4% of the people just do stupid things you will never be able to explain. Whatever you do, and he called this thing the lizard man's constant, from kind of some research they've done where he says 4% of the people in the US believe lizard men run the earth. And if that was true, the system would completely kind of fall apart, but it's not. It's kind of just what the survey says. So some people selected that as, for fun. Some people did it because they were malicious. Some people didn't understand the question, but, there's an upload file button. Somebody wanted to upload an Android application. Well, why not? I mean, so these people, okay, unexpected. I don't know what to do about that. I don't know why. My best guess is it's somebody trying to do this kind of hack where you leave a USB stick in front of a building with a ton of viruses and you hope that somebody will plug it in. So, tough luck. I don't have an Android phone. Even if I wanted to install it, I can't. But send me an iPhone application instead. But kind of going into this, some of the stuff people upload actually made sense. So we had 10, 20 people every day uploading SRT files. SRT files are subtitle files from videos. And it's kind of subtitle files are just text files with a different extension. It's like, well, okay, I don't need to do anything. I just need to whitelist SRT and then people will be able to upload this. It's 10 users more per day that can do this, but why not? Let's let people do it. And then we allowed this, and then we started getting emails how the timestamps are being also read out. It's like, yes, you're uploading the file with timestamps. It's reading the file. I mean, I said, no, but I don't want the timestamps to be read out. I just want the text. And it's like, okay, that's kind of... So we updated this to skip the timestamps, and then we started getting emails, well, it's too slow or it's too fast. So, but, the voice is reading with the speed that the voice is reading. It's not the same voice as the, actor in the movie. But I said, yeah, but we thought it's... And I said, that's an interesting idea, actually. Because if you have somebody who wants to create an alternate audio track, usually they are going to spend hours and hours and hours trying to fit everything together. We are trying to make this thing more productive. So, I can speed it up automatically or I can slow it down. And we did that. And this was by far the most profitable feature I ever built, ever in my life. It sounds weird, but when this was done and I built a web page to explain it, we got a couple of customers that were big enterprise companies that had hundreds of thousands of HR training videos that were done in one language. They needed it in 50 other languages. They didn't want to re-edit videos. The fact that they can just upload a subtitle file and get a German, Chinese, French translation was brilliant for them. Big enterprise companies have money to spend. We have churches where, you know, somebody did a recording of a sermon and now they want it in Vietnamese and Thai and whatnot, and they kind of use some software to get the subtitles out, and then they can do this. So it's like ridiculously profitable. But we would have never really figured this out without just tracking weird log files. So log everything you can. Just keep logging, and then there's the next problem is when you start logging everything you can, the problem is how do we spot signal from noise? Because there's gonna be a ton of this stuff. You know, people will upload weird stuff. Some of it you want to do, some of it you don't want to do, and there are again, you know, software now that can spot anomalies in your logs. There's a bunch of other things. I'm kind of maybe old-fashioned, but I tend to just read through these logs and then look for patterns. I assume there's better ways of doing that now, but I think one of the key things to do is not to follow every stupid lizard around, because that doesn't make any sense. It's not economically viable, but what we need to do is kind of focus on one part where we really want to improve things. And there's a couple of techniques for that. One technique I very much like comes from a book called Lean Analytics, and it's a technique called The Stages of Growth. Lean Analytics is one of these books I think everybody should read. So they talk about a kind of how successful products typically transition through 5 different stages, and at these 5 stages, product management should focus on 5 different things. And they say that at the first stage, you need to prove that you're actually solving a problem. They call this empathy. Then you need to prove that you've solved a problem where the market potentially exists. And you prove that by getting people to use your software very frequently or kind of to be sticky and things like that, because if you can find an area where it's sticky, then the market exists. An example of that is, yes, you know, we built a thing to build videos and audio files, but people were building 1,000 times more audio files than they were building videos, so let's focus on this other thing instead. And then they said you need to prove that you can reach the market, and then you need to kind of prove revenue extraction and things like that. But for each of these stages, there's kind of behaviors, there's user goals and things like that we can focus on differently. And I like using this to say, well, we are now in this stage, what kind of lizard behavior are we looking for to help people do that? And one of the things kind of when this was trying to optimize kind of how people use text-to-speech and kind of get them over this initial hurdle, I started kind of noticing weird situations where people were producing 0-byte audio files. 0-byte audio files should not happen. I mean, that means that we're letting people create blank audios, and people are kind of not paying us for that because I'm charging people for the duration of the audio they create. A blank video still has some duration, so we're getting money. A blank audio has no duration, so we're not getting any money out of that. And we're paying for this. And there were thousands and thousands of blank audio files generated every day when this thing started increasing. So I started logging what's causing blank audio files to be generated. So the log kind of came out as something like this, where people were trying to use voices with a script that's not supported. For example, Charles, which is an English voice, they tried to put in Russian text, or they tried to put in Hindi, or Imran, that's an Arabic voice, they put in Latin text and it can read only Arabic script and things like that. In cases like that, I am actually fully paying for the whole kind of infrastructure to run this stuff. I'm just not getting any results, so the clients are not paying for it. And there's a ton of this Hindi stuff. I'll come back to this a bit later. It's interesting from that perspective. But kind of one of the things that was kind of really problematic there is creating a blank audio. So I wanted to tell people, like, you shouldn't do this. It's a problem. Here's an error. Don't keep doing it, because if you tried it once, don't try it 5 times, because I'm paying 5 times for it. At least I showed them a decent error. So kind of I started showing errors like, okay, you try to use Hindi script with Charles. Charles cannot read that. Charles can only read Latin script. And then I got a really kind of wonderful email from a guy who says, I've paid to use a Canadian voice, and it tells me I need to give you text in Latin, and I'm going to complain to the British consulate, Canadian consulate in Britain. I'm sure the Canadian consulate in Britain is going to be kind of so happy to receive this complaint. They have nothing better to do with their lives anyway. But I looked at what this guy was doing, and he tried to create an audio with 50 equal signs. Like, it's not Canadian, man. Canadians are not like, you know, they're okay, they're, you know, all for equality, but this is too much, you know. So, really kind of the problem here is what Kathy Sierra describes in her book as the suck zone. Kathy Sierra talks about how this is kind of period where people start using a software, and if they're not immediately productive, they get stuck in the suck zone where they never ever leave, and then they drop off because they don't get enough experience with the product to justify additional involvement. They just feel disheartened about it. So she says, like, one of the most important things you have to do is to help people get over this hurdle that's kind of sucking at creating audio files or whatever your product does. What can we do to make them do something in the first 5 minutes? How do we help them? And I've kind of come up with a mental way for me to do this that's iterative and helps me do this in a good way. And that's kind of 3 steps. The first one is to show people a road sign, show people a nice error message, not this kind of confusing stuff that I was showing before. And that's not going to help a lot of people, but it helps with analytics, it helps with logging. It helps divide this unexpected error occurred, system error, unconfigured something, and separate the kind of this group of lizards out of that so we can focus on it, so we can monitor and log that group. Then I want to give them bumpers on the road to help them kind of go back into the lane. And then if that doesn't help, give them a kind of an alternative route of doing things, like a text-to-speech screen instead of upload a PowerPoint screen. And kind of in this case, what I did is try to guess what the script is. Like, if I see Hindi, if I see Bangla, if the software can recognize this, well, maybe just say, well, you've done this, you've selected an Irish voice that doesn't read that. And it's okay, I mean, the user doesn't know how the technology works, but here's a choice of voices you can do. Just click on one more button, and you get what you want. Here are the voices you can choose. And this thing helped quite a lot. So kind of step number 3 really to benefit from this stuff is we need to start removing obstacles that our software is putting in front of users. Through our fault, through our bad analysis, research, whatever, we sometimes put obstacles in front of users, and this was the case where people were kind of uploading PowerPoint to get an audio file. This is the case where I'm forcing people to know which voice can read what. That's an obstacle. And by removing these obstacles, we can get them out of the suck zone. Now, the problem here is when we're talking about removing obstacles, we need to predict what those people will do and how they will react. And this is bad enough even for regular users. Ron Kohavi, in his book, Trustworthy Online Experiments, has some stats on how well different companies are doing kind of guessing what the users will actually do. And he says that kind of at Microsoft, in general, kind of he has data that about 1/3 of the time they guess correctly what people will do, so the experiment turns out well. For more tightly optimized domains, he says Google and Bing as a subset of Microsoft, they're kind of better optimized. That's like, 1 out of every 10 ideas succeed. And kind of this data is really not giving us a lot of confidence, even for regular users. But for lizards, that's by definition they're doing weird things. You have a much better chance of going to a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna than guessing what the lizard will do. So we need to kind of, again, analytics, metrics tracking. So a lovely example of that was when I was trying to get people to create more audio files. And this was kind of a graph on the 14th of February, 2022. The 13th of February. So 13th of February, I've done a release where I expected would create a kind of tiny change that was positive and help grow things up. And on the 14th of February, I saw this. I was like, whoo! I've done something really well here. And it was amazing. I congratulated myself. I was so happy about this. And then I remembered Tywin's law. Tywin's law says that basically any figure that looks very, very interesting is probably wrong. And Twyman was a media analyst. He was kind of analyzing TV audiences in the 50s and 60s. And this is kind of a really interesting thing to keep in your mind. If you do something and it creates like a massive difference, no, probably no. So I looked at because I was running it as an A/B test, and it turns out both groups had a massive increase. So my feature really didn't contribute to anything, but something else did. And while I was trying to figure out what something else did, this is what happened on the next day. It's like, nice. So this is now we're getting from 100,000 tasks per day to 500,000 tasks per day. 5 times growth in 2 days. I'm the best product manager in the world. This is kind of, And then I looked at the financial data, and the financial data was completely wrong. So going back to kind of 5 stages of growth, one thing that you can do very nicely with this model is to say, I'm going to optimize one thing, but I will set guardrail metrics using the other stages. So I want to optimize growth, but I don't want to damage revenue too much. I'm okay if the revenue drops a bit, or I want to increase growth or stickiness, but I don't want to damage my operational costs too much. If the growth is 10%, I want the operational cost to go 10% up. If something kind of different happens there, it's wrong. And I looked at this, and almost nobody was converting to a commercial user. It's kind of free users were using it to the most they could, and not converting to commercial users. And that meant that the company is going to go bankrupt in about 2 weeks if I keep doing this and it keeps growing like this. So I started looking at the data, like what are these people producing? And it was Hindi, 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 Hindi. And like, okay, I have nothing against India, but India is 2% of my revenue. This is now 99% of my costs. So what I did is I just blocked India in general. And then I realized maybe it's a bit too much to do this. I thought we solved the problem, but all of a sudden, next day, all the other countries went up. So people in the Czech Republic were making Hindi videos, people in France were making Hindi videos, and then I realized, that's weird. Why would somebody from North Macedonia be making Hindi audio files in this quantity? So I realized, okay, these people are using VPNs. So my network provider has a feature to identify access over a VPN. And I blocked VPNs, and this generic message came up. That's the road sign. I didn't have time to do anything else. And it says, well, if you're using a VPN, please, turn off the VPN. Otherwise, and this thing happened, so I solved the problem, and you can see a slight dip there. And what ended up happening is I started getting hundreds of emails. How people are blocked now, they want to restore access and things like that. One of my favorite emails was this one, where he says, I not use VPN, I'm not a spam. How can a person be a spam? I thought that was like email. He's harassed by policemen or military. And because he's just spiritual, so, okay, I started getting a bunch of emails from people that were basically just, please restore my access, and nobody, nothing. And this comes from one of these Outlook anonymizers, where you respond and Outlook says, you're not allowed to post to this email. Like, ignore. It was wonderful, I kept getting emails like this, please restore my access, every day for about 10 days. And then I got an email from a Gmail address, please restore my access. I said, this is probably the same person. So I replied and said, look, VPNs are shut down because of, abuse and things like that. I said, but I'm not abusing, I've already paid you like 500 euros for this. Like, oh, that's interesting. There's a user who already paid, I'm blocking them, I shouldn't be doing that. And, he's paranoid, but, that's not my problem. So this comes back to what Kat Holmes is talking about in her book is we don't want to fix up this specific issue. We want to solve for one, but extend to many. That's really kind of the key thing to do here. And in order to do that, kind of what I've realized, well, maybe it's worth just saying, well, if you're accessing over a VPN, log in with your commercial account or pay. That's okay. If you're abusing it, you're abusing it. You're not allowed to do that. If you're a commercial user, that's perfectly fine. And we ended up February that year with a 25% increase in revenue compared to January, which was wonderful. So it wasn't like a 5 times thing, but it was a 25%. I'm really, really happy about that. It was a direct result of kind of looking for these things. So kind of the last really aspect of this is to detect unintended impacts, because whatever kind of I do, there might be totally different unintended impacts there. And that's why it's so important to monitor and monitor and monitor and measure not just what you're trying to achieve, but all the other stuff as well. And then I kind of, again, didn't get completely solved. The spiritual guy came back and said, I'm a very idiot person. And I was quite happy about that. I got an email from an insurance company in India where they said that they're blocked still, although this was fixed, and the system is critical for the business. And I said, well, what's your account name? And he said, well, we don't have an account. We've been using it for 2 years for free. It's like, well, maybe you should think about paying if it's critical to your business. And they said, no, we can't do that. And I said, well, then it's not critical for your business, is it? So, yeah, and so we got a lot of these people out. So, okay, to finish this thing off, there's four important steps to make sure that we can spot when something unexpected happens and benefit from it. So the first step is like lizard alert. It's kind of learning how people are misusing our products. The second step is really to focus on one thing that is worth changing now. There's going to be a million things there, but one thing that is really going to advance the product, one behavior change, one focus area. The third thing is kind of remove obstacles from users' success, and the fourth thing is to look at unexpected impacts. I've recommended a couple of books. You can kind of take a picture of those books there. They're wonderful, or if you go to the QR code, the website has a section for books, and it has a section for tools. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much for listening.